I think if I were smart, I would have saved this part of the fish room tour for last, kind of saved the best for last, but this part 4, we are going to be showing you some absolutely stunning fish, some amazing tanks behind us. I hope you enjoy the video. If you haven't seen the first 3 parts, check out the description below. Would love to hear from you. Which part so far has been your favorite? Thank you so much for being here. Hope you enjoyed the video. Of all the fish room tours we do, of all the parts I show you, this part 4 of the fish room tour, is absolutely going to rank, if not at the top, very close to the top of the tanks we're going to show you. We've got this 150. It's a 4-foot 150. I'm going to show you a couple 75s, a couple 55s, and every one of these tanks I absolutely love. I love this corner of the fish room. The main fish you're looking at in this tank is Geophagus Altar Fin. By the way, I've done a species profile on this fish, as well as pretty much every fish you're going to see in this tank and most that you're going to see in this video. So this Geophagus Altar Fin is awesome. We've had this fish for many, many years. It is basically pretty close to full grown at somewhere around maybe 9-10 inches or so. Absolutely shows great colors. You can see the fins are in great shape. It's in there with a frontosa, and right now they're trying to figure things out because Joanna just added a bunch of driftwood to this tank, and it changed all of the territorial things that they had going on. I suspect if we give this tank another couple weeks, they will be completely at peace knowing which part of the tank is theirs. But they've gotten along well for many years. People ask why we keep the Geophagus and the frontosa together. They've got very similar requirements in terms of diet. Water requirements in nature might be a little bit different, but the water requirements in our fish room, the parameters are all the same in every single tank. So absolutely love that 150. This is another one here. This 75-gallon is one of my favorite tanks in the fish room. It houses 6 Hekeli albinos, otherwise known as the albino Hekeli. These fish, as you can see, are absolutely phenomenal. We've had them since they were very tiny, and they're finally starting to grow into their own. You can see the colors that they're showing are quite awesome. The iridescence in their fins. Look at those long trailers on their fins, both the dorsal fin, the tail fin. They, for the most part, get along just fine. There's really not a ton of aggression here. The 75-gallon has just got one 4-foot Phoenix Stingray light, a couple sponge filters. There are a couple bristlenose, actually there's one bristlenose Pleco, one very, very old female clown Pleco that's been in here forever. We've got the 6th Hekeli albinos, and then we also have, and I'll show you this here in a few minutes, we have a Snowball Pleco. And so that's for the most part what we've got going on here. Planted a little bit of jungle val just to add some greenery. They kind of tore some of it up as time goes on. You can see some floating there, but this is a tank. Like I said, it is, when you walk into the fish room, this is one that people often gravitate to because these 6 fish here, the albino Hekeli, are always staring, looking at whoever walks in the room. Very personable fish. Unfortunately, I may wind up with what looks to be, at least based on the finnage, mostly males, if not all males. I had a larger group, but I lost the rest of the group because I transferred part of the group into a 125, and for whatever reason, that group, there was something in that tank that didn't agree with those fish, and I lost that half of when I originally brought these fish in. But I'm lucky that I had them in 2 tanks, so at least this group is okay, but I'm probably going to be looking for some females. What's interesting about this, and I'll show you a standard Hekeli here in a little bit, but the body shape and the fin shape on these fish is different, and I don't know if that is due to trying to get those albino genes in those fish a little bit, to show a little bit more, but it's definitely got a different shape. And this is the Snowball Pleco that's in that tank. I absolutely love this fish. It's one of those things when you buy some of these Plecos, you don't see them often, and so when you do, it's kind of rewarding. This is the 75-gallon that's right above the Hekeli Albino tank. This 75 has got a lot going on. So one, you're going to see some young Geophagus dichrososter. Those are the Geophagus that you see. I don't think this is going to be their permanent home just because the substrate is gravel, and eventually I'm probably going to want to move them to sand. It's going to be a lot of fun trying to get them out of this tank, but I absolutely love this tank, and I think one of the reasons why this tank looks different than the other aquariums that you see throughout this video, and part of that is the lighting. This is otherwise known as the Kessel tank. We have 2 Kessel Tuna Sun freshwater aquarium lights on this tank. Now these lights are extremely expensive. I think each light, by the time you get it set up, is probably $350, $370. I did not pay for these lights. Kessel sent them to me years ago to do a review. They are by far the best lights we have in the fish room, but you're also going to pay a price for having this look. It's not actually coming through on video all that well, but there is a definite shimmering that you see, and so sometimes when you walk up to an aquarium and it's kind of shimmers, that's usually these higher end lights, and most of the standard LED lights that you find, even the Fluval 3.0s, aren't going to give you quite what you see here. In addition to the Geophagus, you can see throughout this video we've got some rainbow fish, standard rainbows, and we've got the dwarf rainbows. We have some Florida flagfish in here, which have done a great job on some of the green hair algae we've had throughout. These here are the snakeskin barbs. Absolutely love this fish. I am fairly certain it's my favorite barb, or if it's not my favorite, it's definitely in the top 3. So those fish have brought a lot of really nice color. These Geophagus are going to get larger. They're going to eventually appear somewhat similar to the Geophagus Altar Fin you saw in the 150. So at some point, the group is too big for a 75 gallon, so I'm going to have to pull these fish, at least some of them, out eventually anyway, because I believe there's somewhere between 6 to 8 in this tank. But we've got a lot of plants in here, rockwork, wood. Most of the plants are jungle val, but there's also some crinum in this tank. We've had really good luck, and only in this tank, with Java fern. This is the Windelov Java fern you'll see throughout. Java fern in our fish room, for the most part, doesn't survive. In this tank, it's doing quite well. There is also a larger sword plant on the left-hand side here, but this is a relatively heavily planted tank. And again, it's one of these ones where we're looking at a lot of my certainly top 10 fish tanks in our fish room. And we've got a fish room of 80 tanks, and pretty much all of these are making the top 10 in this video. This is actually a 55 gallon. Haven't shown this one in a while. It looks very different compared to the way it used to look. I apologize right now. There is some stuff floating around in the water every single time I walk up to this tank. There are some large bristlenose plecos. They go scurrying about the bottom. Because of the way it's aquascaped, some of the detritus and stuff gets stirred up. There's really nothing I can do about that. So I still love this tank. I still think it looks amazing. Obviously, we've got some standouts here, and that is we've got 14 pearl gouramis. We have a few of the gold variety and a few of the standards. We also have this Actoric, these Hekeli. This is the standard version. So you saw the albinos in the 75 gallon previously. We just have the one here, still very small. This fish right now is probably around 4 inches. It will easily get up to 8 to 10 inches. Had these fish in tanks before that got quite a bit larger. But again, the standouts here are these pearl gouramis. A lot of people want to keep gouramis, at least have multiples in a tank. The 2 that I recommend most if you want to keep multiples, the honey gourami, which stays very, very small. And then here we've got the pearl gourami, quite a bit larger. In fact, it's one of the more larger common types of gouramis. They definitely get larger than the golds and the blues and the opalines. But these, as you can see, can be kept together with very little aggression. It's very rare that I see these fish going after one another. We've got some cherry barbs in here. These were the old Flip Aquatics cherry barbs. You know, it looks like we've got at least a couple males. There's actually more than a few. There's a few females in here as well too. Plants, for the most part, we've got Anubias. I think we have some corkscrew val in here, but this tank is basically just running off of 2 sponge filters, and there is a 4-foot light. I think the 4-foot light on this tank, going by memory, might be a Beamswork light, and that's what we have here. A lot of driftwood, a lot of rocks. In this tank, we are using a black sand substrate, and so the previous tanks you saw, it was mostly gravel. Brings up a question that we get asked a lot: do plants need gravel or sand? It really doesn't make a difference. We've got plants growing in both. They don't seem to grow any differently, whether it's a gravel substrate or a sand substrate, at least for the plants that we are growing in our fish room. This is the last tank I'm going to show you in this video. This is the 55-gallon right above the one I just showed you. And we have some Mbuna cichlids in here. I love this mix. This is a mix of Pseudotropheus psiloci. That's the blue fish with the dark blue vertical stripes. The females are yellow. The other fish that you see swimming around here for the most part are rusty cichlids, and both of them for the most part are relatively non-aggressive. I love this combo because you're getting blue, you're getting yellow, you're getting some of that purple color. You put the rusty cichlids on a lighter substrate, they get a lighter purple, which is kind of cool. There is one random Eureka Red female in here back in the day when this used to be a Eureka Red breeding tank, and there is one White Knight Ali peacock cichlid. So a couple of random fish in here. We do have some dwarf petricola, catfish, and a number of bristlenose plecos. But I absolutely love this tank. It's not uncommon to see a number of females holding. We do need to start pulling some of these females so we can start breeding these fish again. Usually when we do, we just pull them aside, throw them in a 10-gallon, let them spit their fry. So that was part 4 of the fish room tour. We've got a couple more parts, some more tanks to show you. If you haven't seen the previous fish room tours that we've done, check out the description below. I'll put the first 3 parts in there. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.